Hey everybody, I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama. I'm sitting in my room. I'm actually dressed and have makeup on today. So I wanted to show my face and let's do a quick follow-up discussion with the video I just posted about having rats around your chicken run. So, first of all, I love my YouTube community and thank you to everybody who has put respectful comments, your experiences, questions, observations, all of that kind of stuff. We are all always learning from each other and our different experiences, and so I really appreciate that. I wanted to clarify a few things that are going on in my situation and some things that I've learned from all of you, as well as on some of the online backyard chicken groups that I am a part of. So the original purpose of me putting that video out was for you to see that just because you don't see them in the forefront when you're out with your chickens, it doesn't mean that you don't have possums, raccoons, hawks, owls, rats, mice, things like that, who are around in the same environment, in the same habitat that your chickens are, basically. You guys started bringing up a whole bunch of other good points, and that's what I wanted to address. The purpose of my video was just to show that it's normal for you to find other animals that hang around because you have chickens. You have animals who live outside. They eat and drink outside. They live outside. And so it's going to attract other animals. That's normal. But you guys are right in that you need to do everything you possibly can to limit those types of pests. Now, most parasites and diseases and things like that are not going to jump between mammal and bird. So for us, for example, we are not at risk of having an infestation of poultry lice because they live on the quills of the feathers right as the feather is growing out of your chicken's body. You can get one little bite from a poultry mite, for example, but poultry mites and lice and the kinds of things that live on your chickens, we as mammals are not at risk for getting those same diseases or those same pests or parasites. However, it is possible that there are certain things that rats or mice, for example, can bring into your chicken run or bring into your chicken coop that can eventually be a problem. So we want to do a few things to minimize that risk as much as possible. The first is the very basic thing that you want to make sure your chickens are locked up at night. They need to be locked up in a coop that's secure. Other people have suggested things like having backyard cats, having dogs around, things like that, and that's all really, really helpful too. In my particular instance, I have a neighbor on one side of me where the rats were coming from. In my video, if you've seen it, that person has a shed that has a whole bunch of like junk and just old, broken down yard machinery and lawn care stuff and things like that. And that's where the rats have their nest. My neighbor on the other side rescues cats and helps with the cat population in the neighborhood, and so they have cat food out. The rats that are going back and forth on my fence, they're not staying in my run, and I know this because I've put up a game cam, which is another thing that you can invest in or that you can do to watch what's going on in your chicken run. But they're using my back fence as a thoroughfare, as a highway to leave the house and go and get cat food and then come back. The rats are able to access any treats that are left out in the chicken run. You guys have seen me throw sunflower seeds and flock blocks and grub terra and stuff like that. But all of the chicken's food is locked up at night. So it is in airtight containers. I use the ones that are primarily marketed for like dog food, but they have the airtight with a rubber seal around it. It's a plastic container that has a lock on it. And then that goes within another bin. So it's double sealed. If the rats can't smell it, then they can't get into it. So make sure that your chickens are locked up at night. You want to make sure there are not any big gaps, big holes where they can get in, where any animals can get in, not only to your chickens, but there have been instances of mice, people finding mice like chewing on the feathers of your chickens and eating old feathers. But we're also talking about you locking up all of the food as much as possible. And you can get a game cam, a nocturnal game cam that will just turn on at night and it shows you who's walking around at night so you can get an idea. So those are all great things. There are also herbs or like essential oils that you can use around. I know that lavender and peppermint both work really well for deterring all types of pests. That also ironically works for things like spiders and flies as well. If you want to put that on any kind of cloth and hang it in your chicken coop or hang it around your chicken run, just know that when those things get wet or if they've been out in the sun for a long time, the effectiveness and like the strength of that smell is going to get smaller and just become less. So In closing, to clarify, the video that I made was just to show you that there are little animals who have come into the ecosystem where your chickens are, whether or not you see them. And the point of the video was also to help you be vigilant and kind of don't get complacent on things like locking up the chicken food at night. Make sure that nobody can smell it, nobody can access it. Make sure that your chickens are locked up as safely as possible. Like I said, there have been reports of mice going in and chewing on chickens' feathers and eating their feathers at night. I don't worry too much about the disease from the rats, and maybe I should, but I know that the rats are not living in the chicken run. They're going back and forth as a thoroughfare. And if there's extra food, extra sunflower seeds or treats that were left out, not in the chicken's feeder, because like I said, those are locked up. But if there was extra food out on the ground, the rats, the squirrels, the little animals who can make it in through the bird netting and stuff, they're going to get those things, and that's inevitable. But just be aware of those things. If you want to do more research on what kinds of diseases or what kinds of risks can transmit back and forth between rats and chickens, that's something that you can look more into. Like I said, I know that's a risk, but it's not a high risk for me because I know the rats are not living within my chicken run. You've got farm animals. You have animals who live outside. They poop outside. They sleep in a little house that's outside. Their food is outside. They dig around outside all day. It's not the same as having a dog who is an indoor animal. So there are going to be some other things that happen because your chickens are outside animals. So just be aware of the different risks. Be vigilant on those different things that you can control, but don't freak out too much about the things you can't control. For me, I know that having squirrels around and mice and rats, and maybe a little bit more likelihood of having possums and raccoons and things in the area, I know that that's something I'm always going to deal with. We're never going to have an environment where there aren't ever any hawks flying around or any owls or anything like that. I do what's in my control to keep my chickens safe and to keep them healthy. But I also know for me, realistically, I know I'm never going to completely get rid of the rats. But with education and with vigilance, hopefully I can minimize the risk to my flock as much as possible. So I hope that was helpful. Keep dropping down more comments, more observations, your experiences, your questions down below, and we'll keep the conversation going. Thanks.